Well, I got to say it's impressive to me what you're doing and the scope of things that you're doing. I mean, you're haying. I see you winching logs out and using basically a windlass and block and tackle to winch these logs up and making your own lumber and fixing everything. And like you're an incredibly capable person, and that capability has got to feel good every time you accomplish something that maybe you didn't know how to do before you started it.
Yeah, this job has been the most empowering thing I could have ever done. I wish everyone in the world could spend 1 year alone at a place like Indian Creek, completely alone and isolated. And when shit hits the fan, instead of panicking and wondering who's going to come save you, you realize that nope, you're the person that has to solve this problem.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. Okay, well, I'm here with Aubrey Barton, and she's over inside the Frank Church Wilderness, and I'm actually not too awful far away, although I'm in a different state, and there's a few big canyons between us, and we've each got a hell of a good windstorm going on right now. Aubrey, you're on satellite internet, is that right?
That is correct.
It's pretty wild that we can live in a time when something like this is even possible. Tell me a little bit about the Frank Church.
So it's 2.3 million acres, and there's a small community of us that live out here year round. There's about 11 of us that live out here, mainly running these outfitting ranches, private ranches and homesteads, and I just happen to be the lucky one of the 11.
So which place are you a caretaker for?
I'm at Indian Creek Ranch, which is actually wedged right in between the Frank Church and the Gospel Hump Wilderness. So okay. I'm right on the edge. So I can clear my trail with the chainsaw, which is awesome. But one ridge line to the west is Gospel, and two ridge lines to the east is the Frank.
Okay. So. And the actual property that you live on isn't that big, but the amount of ground around you is tremendous. It's hard for people to understand just how big it all is.
Yeah, I don't have neighbors very close. So it's only 82 acres here. But I mean, it's the closest neighbors I have is 4 miles away as a crow flies. And that's long ways in this country because it's very steep terrain.
Could you hike that in a day?
I can, absolutely. In the summertime, it's about a 6-hour hike. It's 10.5 miles. And in the wintertime, it's about a 14-hour snowshoe trek.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I want to do is sort of talk people through what a year in your life looks like and take it month by month. And I think people are going to be interested in knowing what you do and what you have to do to keep this place up. So, first of all, tell me how you got into this job that you're in.
Well, I grew up on a cattle ranch in Salmon, Idaho, and that's right on the edge of the Frank. And we had friends in the Frank Church that were outfitters, and I always knew I wanted to work out here. And so I dropped out of college and moved out here and started as a camp cook at China Bar. And I've worked at 7 different lodges on the river and, knew the right people with this job when it opened up, and I could run a chainsaw and I could pack horses, and the rest I could figure out. So that's how I landed this job, particularly here at the ranch.
And there's a lot of figuring out that goes into it.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
I lived in Salmon for a while, and I really enjoyed that town. It's a great place with some really great people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's home.
So talk to me about January.
January is probably the coldest month of the year, and that's just trying to keep water running. I've got 2 water lines that are still running in the wintertime. My drinking water to this cabin, and this is a 115-year-old cabin, and it's not insulated that well. So keeping water running here is a huge chore. And then I also have a hydro water line, and that's even more of a chore when it drops like single digits or below to keep stuff running. It's a lot of, like, if it's single digits one night, I have to build a fire by the hydro inlet and break ice all night. So,
and nights are not very short that time of year.
Yeah, I get 2 hours of direct sunlight at the homestead here because I live in a really narrow canyon. But I actually love January. It's a hard time of year just because, once the river freezes, I'm completely remote. I can't go anywhere. I'm not going to snowshoe to the closest airstrip. I'm stuck here for about 3 months, and January is kind of the heart of that time. And my mail is being airdropped. They're throwing it out of the airplane once a week. And so what I do to kind of keep from getting cabin fever is I run a trap line here, just a small one. It's only like 5 miles long.
How many sets do you have in that 5 miles?
A lot. Oh yeah. I set on, like every log that goes across the creek, for bobcat and coyotes. And that's my most successful set because, they don't want to get their feet wet. So
are you running snares or footholds?
Everything. Yeah, snares, footholds. I have a hard time with footholds. You got to make wax dirt, but, dealing with freeze and thaw is an issue. I'm trapping mainly bobcat, coyote, and wolves here.
Did you catch any wolves last year?
No, but I shot one. So
nice.
That was a huge, I in the pack. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Tell me about that.
So it was, I think January this last winter, and I was out getting firewood at like 4 a.m. and I heard some wolves up on the ridge above me doing the victory chant. I'm like, oh, they got to kill up there. And as soon as it got light, I saw some ravens, the ravens that follow the pack all the time. And so I knew for sure that they had a kill. So I went up there and I put, I had my dog with me and I threw out a couple howls, and then I saw this wolf stick his head up and I'm like, oh, great. And I saw 4 more pop their heads up behind him. And then they came at me madder than hell. And they saw my dog Hams. I felt bad. I was using him as bait, but called him right in. And, I had about 5 minutes to figure out who Alpha was and who I wanted to shoot. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's incredible. I was terrified. I didn't feel like the alpha predator anymore, when having 5 wolves coming at you.
It's nice to have that little reset every once in a while. The first wolves I ever saw were in Montana, and I called 5 of them in with my buddy Adam, and he's a big tough guy, and we've hunted together a lot, and we were both pretty shook up for the rest of the day. We were done elk hunting. We had to just go back to wall tent and eat Snickers bars and kind of giggle about it.
Yeah, it was kind of scary, but yeah, still I'll never forget it in my life. Yeah.
What kind of rifle do you shoot?
A 308. It's probably meant for like a 12-year-old boy. It's small, but it's perfect for me.
Nothing wrong with the 308. That's a great gun. I do a lot of hunting with the 308.
Yeah. Okay.
So January, you're getting 2 hours of sunlight a day, trying to keep the world from freezing in on you. And if you get if those pipes freeze, they're going to break, and then you're just completely hosed at that point.
Well, no, I'm not toast. There's no ultimatum. If the pipe freezes, then, I drain the line and I fix it. And that's how I had to learn how to solder first here, because the pipes froze, the copper pipes, and did a YouTube tutorial and fixed it. It's not very fun.
Oh, that's pretty metal. Okay. So February, what happens then?
So February, the girls on the river like to say that there's a reason that February is only 28 days, because, winter's starting to drag on, and it's just kind of a lot of the same things as January, you know, running the trap line till bobcat season closes. End of February, though, I start my early starters for my garden, like my peppers, all the plants in the cabbage family, and even tomatoes on my south-facing windowsill here in the cabin. So that's probably the most exciting thing that happens in February.
February is not a great month. It's definitely top 2 for my least favorite. Seems like nothing good really happens there. But but usually you get a thaw that starts to happen a little bit. And what elevation are you at there in Indian Creek?
I'm only at 3,500. And then the river where my trailhead is 2,000. So
yeah,
it's not bad. It's a pretty good winter. But February too is kind of when the river starts to open up, and sometimes it opens up and then refreezes and opens up. And that's when people start steelhead fishing. I go down and party with some women with bait fishermen,
Cool.
My first human contact, like 3 months. So that's usually what happens in February.
Is the mouth of Indian Creek there a good place to catch a steelhead?
No.
Okay. Well, then what happens? What happens in March?
March is, I call it icy muddy muck month, where the ranch is just like, it's not very pretty. It's probably my least favorite month out of the whole year. The redeeming factor, though, is I open up my greenhouse and I get all my vegetables started by March 5th. And I usually do a trip to town in March. My first one, I usually do one in like October and then one in March. So 2 trips a year. So I do like quick overnight to town, and resupply. Yeah. Harrow the meadows, fix fence.
You just go to Riggins or do you go to Lewiston?
Lewiston. Yep.
Make a little Costco run.
Yeah. Yeah. Multiple trips into Costco, run to Winco. Yeah. Go eat at a nice restaurant that's not bear meat.
What's your favorite restaurant in Lewiston?
It's called Zany's. It's I don't know.
Do you get sushi?
It has all the stuff I want. Yep, I get sushi and I get smoked chicken, and that's like hits the spot. And I always hit like a pizza, like Domino's, and like take that in the car with me.
So for the folks that don't understand, what does that look like for you to get from Indian Creek to Lewiston?
So first of all, going to town is like a huge endeavor, because it's not just me going to town. I have to find the horses, pack out all my empty propane tanks and fuel jugs. And then I bring the horses back, and then I organize a jet boat ride. And then the day of going to town, it's up early in the morning, hike to the river, which is 3.5 miles, catch a jet boat. It helps to show a little leg, trying to thumb down a jet boat, catch a jet boat down river to Vinegar Creek. And then from there, it's about an hour dirt road drive to Riggins. And then from Riggins, it's another 3 hours to Lewiston. And then it's just getting tons of shopping done, and then staying the night in Lewiston and doing it, returning back the next day.
Nice. So you're not calling somebody from the Shep Ranch to bring a jet up and pick you up. You're just waiting for somebody to drive past and jumping in with them.
Well, I mean, I've done that before. That's what I joke about, but usually I have it organized, somebody on the river that's going. Nobody's going to make a special trip. So I organize my trips to town when I know somebody's going downriver and upriver, and I can catch a boat. Gotcha.
Well, as long as the river's not completely blown out, if you're ever getting a jam, let me know and I'll come get you.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes me feel very good. Thank you.
It wouldn't make you feel very good if you knew how bad of a jet boat pilot I am, but
how many rocks have you hit?
I hit 0 rocks this time. Oh,
good job.
Yeah.
Then you're doing great.
I feel like I got close. I can't remember the name of that rapid up there above Warren Creek. But it was super bony. There's rocks everywhere. That was 0 fun to go through.
Are you talking about Mans Creek?
It was probably Man Creek. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what going to town looks like. and you're doing that all in a day. But if you've just got to go pick up something from the river, you've got a 3-mile hike down there. And I've seen you, carrying pretty big loads on your back, including like live chickens inside cages to come back up river or back up the canyon to your place. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a pack horse. I've got horses. This ranch is only trail accessible. So somehow it's got to come back some way, somehow. It's either my back or the horse's backs.
Too cool. Okay. So mucky muddy month is over with. Now comes April, starting to get some warmer days, a little bit of green grass coming out.
Yep. This is when I get slammed. I feel like I always get slapped in the face, just with projects. It's project season. I'm getting the meadows ready. I've got the fences up and meadows ready to irrigate, and then opening up the irrigation line for my horses so I can hay. I just have lots of projects. I'm burning brush piles. I start getting firewood. I like getting my firewood in before June, before rattlesnakes come out, and before hunting season in the fall, because I have no time in the fall. So I usually get my firewood. I'm getting fence posts. I'm clearing all my trails. It's just, you name it, I'm doing it. Whatever needs to be done at the ranch.
Do you have haying equipment up there? Or are you doing that with horses?
I have a tractor here that's a recent addition. Before they were cutting hay with the old pull behind sickle bar mower, but now I have a tractor that still does a sickle bar mower. It's miserable.
Yeah, gets plugged up a lot.
Yeah, because they're made for like orchard grass, not for clover. It's you cut 5 feet and you stop and have to ungunk the mower, even with new teeth. I've tried everything.
And the hay is to feed the horses throughout the winter, right?
Yeah, correct.
Gotcha. And so I was up there during April bear hunting, had a great time. And it was just a truly amazing river canyon. I've guided on the lower main salmon for whitewater, but I'd never been in that section, anything up above Riggins. So I'd been guiding from like Hammer Creek on down to Lewiston, basically. So I have a deep love for the salmon. It's a really incredible and beautiful river, and has a rich history of people like you who are, just carving a way of life out of some really rough conditions and just making it work with whatever they've got. And I have such admiration for that, and such admiration for you for getting it done.
Well, you shouldn't be like, I'm not like an old timer. They were doing it without internet. I could not have done this job without having internet, because there's so much I didn't know how to do, and YouTube tutorials have saved my butt.
So tell people a little bit about these scows, these big sweet boats, and what that looked like for the old timers in the early days of the salmon.
I don't know anything about rafting, so you'll have to explain that. I know more about what they had to do to survive once they got here, but I don't know about the scows or sweet boats or anything.
Well, so it's called the River of No Return. And when Lewis and Clark initially came across, the Indians told them that it couldn't be done. And Clark tried it, and he turned around. And he's like, yeah, they're completely right. It's impossible. What people would do is they'd build these sweet boats they were made of wood, a flat wooden floor, wooden walls, and then sort of squared off bow and stern that were angled. And instead of oars sticking out the sides, they'd have sweeps, one that came out the back and one that came out the front. And the neat thing about these scows is they could put everything that they had in them, including their families. They'd build a deck across the top to try and keep water out. And once they got to a place they liked, there was enough lumber in that boat that they could tear it apart and build a cabin with it. And that's what really hammered in the River of No Return, because you didn't come back from it. Like if you find a beach that you like and you tear your boat apart to make your home, that's some commitment that you're going to stay there. And I found that so amazing, because we don't commit to anything like that in our lives today. And I really appreciate those old timers.
Yeah, I've heard that part of the history. I also, like, at one point in this area, there were like 10,000 people living out here, between the early 1900s and, right before World War II, and that kind of everybody evacuated then. But like this homestead was settled in the early 1900s by a couple brothers that were circus performers that wanted to live out here. And they settled this little teeny flat. Like whoever thought to hike up this canyon and that they were going to build a cabin here just blows my mind. So they settled this flat, and then they decided to grow produce for miners in Warren, which is not close, and Dixietown, which is not close. And they're doing pack trips to both these towns just to supply produce. So it's pretty incredible.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're now in the month of May, so more gardening.
Yeah, May is kind of when I get the whole garden in by Mother's Day. I in April I do some early starters in the garden, but the main garden's in May. I also it's just same with April. It's just project time. I'm milling lumber. I'm building things. I've got an outdoor kitchen project. Last year I was milling lumber to do an outhouse. And I also put a roof on the barn the year before. So it's just project season.
And you're doing all this stuff by yourself.
Yes, I am, but I have an incredible community. So if I need help, like putting a new roof on the barn, I was able to call some friends and they came up and helped. So yeah, it's a pretty incredible community. I'm not all by myself because I have a backup system here.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I'm 25.
You're tough. I think most people would be terrified to do what you do. On the other hand, I'm scared when I'm in cities. I don't feel comfortable around a lot of people, things moving fast. And I'm much more comfortable in that type of environment, but that's how most people live. So for somebody to think about a 25-year-old young woman, doing all the things that you do, wedged between two wildernesses where it takes you, a 3-mile hike and a 15-mile jet boat ride, and then, another 3 or 4 hours just to get to town to buy whatever supplies you need and only go into town a couple times a year. I mean, that's a different way to live than what most people are used to.
Yeah, I'm with you though. Like the most stressful days out of the year are the 2 times I go to town. It's not, trying to deal with Costco and the crowds and driving my car. I'm totally out of shape for driving my car. Everything's scary.
Feels very fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It's just go from walking everywhere I need to go to going 60 miles an hour. It's terrifying.
When I came back from Afghanistan, I was there for close to a year, and I never went over like 25 miles an hour max. There's IEDs everywhere, and I was in tanks, and we needed to go slow so that we could try to see if there was an IED that we were about to drive over the top of. So after that year, and I came back and had to drive the speed limit in North Carolina, it took me I think it took me a couple of weeks before I worked my way back up to 50 or 60 miles an hour. And, I looked like the pace car at a NASCAR race because there's just a million people behind me everywhere I went because I was going too slow.
That's actually exactly what I do when I go to town. I get honked at, but I'm not comfortable. I usually stick like 5 to 10 under the speed limit because I don't know. It's all happening so fast, and I think a pretty safe person. So
you said June was the rattlesnake month.
Yeah, that's when rattlesnakes start coming out. Well, they start in May, and if I see a rattlesnake, it's dead. But that's the rattlesnake month. That's also I'm looking for a window to hay. I've put up hay as late as the first week of July, but that's late. If I can do it by mid-June, I'm pretty happy. And first cutting is always harder because it's it's a bigger cutting than the second cutting. So I need help typically.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you have a barn to store that hay in, or does it get stacked out in a yard?
Yes, I have a barn, but it's loose hay. So I'm putting it up just like everybody's grandparents and great grandparents and great great grandparents put up hay, one pitchfork at a time.
That does sound like a rattlesnake infested task.
Yeah, there's no listening to music in my ears. It's just keeping my eyes open. And yeah, because I always need help putting up hay. I have my neighbor at Shep Ranch that's 4 miles away. He comes up and he helps me. It takes about 2 days to cut 2 acres, which shows how slow that mower is. And then I'm usually alone here all week flipping the hay by hand with a pitchfork, and it takes me 18 hours to flip both meadows by hand to make sure it's getting super dry, because I do not want to put green hay up in that barn, because that's how you start a barn fire. And that would be devastating.
Yeah.
And then I typically get like some river neighbors come up, or my family will come in, and when it's ready to go in the barn. And so we just load it up, one pitchfork at a time, onto the hay trailer, and there's somebody stomping the hay down like the Amish do. And then we take the trailer down to the barn, and somebody has to pull it up with the Jackson fork. And that's usually with the tractor. Although one year our tractor wasn't working and my horse had to pull it into the barn. And it's hard to explain without visuals, but it's a pulley system that lifts, you fork this thing called the Jackson fork into the hay, and then a certain pulley system, whether it's a tractor or a horse, pulls it up into the barn, and then you drop the hay in the barn loft as loose hay, and then just do it over and over again.
So what do you think you're doing for tonnage?
Oh, I couldn't say. I know one hay wagon is about a week's worth of feed for the horses in the wintertime for about 6 horses. And we usually do about 12 to 15 hay wagons each cutting. So probably 30 total. So 30 total hay wagons, 30 weeks of feed is what I can get out of it for 6 horses.
6 horses. And you're probably feeding them 20 pounds a day each.
Yeah. It's hard to, I just go by feel. I think it's 20 pounds. Who knows? I might be overfeeding them. I'm overfeeding them actually.
Yeah. I've seen some pictures. They look a little bit buttery in the springtime.
Yeah. Which I'd rather have that.
Now that canyon can get smoking hot in July.
Yeah. July is another month that I do not like. The redeeming thing is the garden, of course, but it's like African heat. And, you get up at like 4 a.m. and get all your stuff done by 2 p.m. and then just hide in the shop or the cellar somewhere cool.
I remember there was times guiding that the beaches would be so hot that you couldn't walk on them. So you'd have to carry buckets of water to pour out ahead of you everywhere you went, because it'd burn your feet too bad to be able to walk on it.
Yeah.
And then August, dirty August, probably gets a little smoky sometimes.
It's very, very smoky in August. And that's the time of year where I'm getting ready for my second cutting. And so I got to do hay again. And I also go help clear trail for hunting camps for local friends, the local outfitters. I'm canning a lot in August. The garden's starting to create like a huge bounty that I can't eat and keep up with. So I'm doing a lot of canning for winter time. And projects, there's always something to do.
Do you have enough lids for your jars? They're almost impossible to find these days.
Yeah, well, I do something that you're not supposed to do, so I don't recommend this, but I reuse jar lids.
That's gangster.
Yeah, if they, as long as it gets a good seal, if it doesn't seal up, then, I know that was a bad lid, but, that's the problem I'm having in town right now. I can't find lids, and so I just collect them and reuse them. Wow. But don't do that. Like, that's not, I don't recommend that at all.
Well, stay safe on that. But I suppose if it seals, then and it got up to temperature, you should be fine, right?
Yeah, I haven't gotten botulism yet, so knock on wood.
Yeah. And then September, that's a good month.
Yes, it's a great month. And I usually actually get somebody to come watch the ranch for 3 weeks here, and I go do hunting camp. And so I leave the homestead for half the month, and I'm a camp cook for, either Mackey Bar or Shep Ranch. Okay. And I love that. I just, all about hunting camp. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is that mostly elk, or are people coming in there for bighorns and deer?
Mostly elk, but of course everybody has their mule deer tags. And so if somebody, they've definitely gotten mule deer bucks as well, and wolves and bears, whatever, if somebody's tagged out and they have another tag, then might as well. But I love, my favorite thing is the first person that gets a bull down and they bring me the heart. And I love making that first heart hors d'oeuvres for everybody to share around the campfire.
That's one of my favorite pieces of meat off of an elk too.
Yeah. Do you eat the liver?
I do sometimes. When I was in Africa, I ate liver on everything and really, really enjoyed it. I found that the smaller you cut up the pieces, the better it is. But big pieces of liver, I haven't figured out how to cook correctly. They get a little bit rubbery when I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of liver, but I'll eat anything. So, and a lot of times the hunters want it. So we'll do liver and onions, and it's just part of the camaraderie of camp.
Sure. October, another great month. Lots of hunting still going on.
Yep. And that's usually when my bosses actually, I'll pack them in, they'll come in for a few weeks and hunt, and I'll hunt with them. And I'm finishing up the garden. So I'm canning, I'm hunting, trying to fill my freezer. The owners are hunting, so I'm packing stuff off the hill for them. It's just hunting season.
Okay. And by the end of October, you're probably starting to see some colder days, and you definitely want to have your firewood situation squared away at that point.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's all splitting in the woodshed by June at the latest. So I just have that over with, because the fall, there's just so much going on, and I'm winterizing lines too at that point and getting ready for winter. And usually I do one trip to 22. That's usually happens in October.
So on your October trip, what kinds of things are you buying in town?
I usually get everything in the spring trip. So it's just whatever, doing a final, I go through the root cellar to see how I'm doing on flower. I do a final once over, and it's usually a pretty small trip to town. I'm really not getting anything for the ranch. I pack in all the supplies for the ranch in April, but I do a feed order, which takes about a week, where I order literal tons of feed for my chickens. I've got a dog, cats, and extra hay cubes and grain for the horses. So that's just a week of up and down to the river 3 times a day with the string, trying to pack in thousands of pounds of feed.
Gotcha. So November, now it's getting sure enough cold.
Yep. Everything's winding down. The season's kind of closing, up until mule deer season closes the 18th. It's kind of a war zone in here. I've got a lot of hunters that come in here. But I usually have everything winterized by then, and I've got the garden all put to bed, and it's just kind of getting ready to cozy down after just balls to the wall, cozy down for winter and start relaxing and getting ready to, hibernate.
And speaking of hibernation, December is a pretty good month to do it. There's still a lot that needs to be done every day, but you probably get some downtime.
Oh yeah. Yep. December and January are the slowest months of the year. All I'm doing is running traps and keeping water lines from freezing and feeding animals every day. I do little projects. I'll mill up with the Alaskan mill, some boards. But I'm not super motivated to get a whole lot done, because, other times a year it's 14-hour days, for 9 months out of the year. So wintertime's the time to enjoy.
Do you read or do anything like that for leisure?
Yeah, I read. I have a TV here. I have to turn off the fridge to watch it at night. So I'll turn off the fridge and I catch up on TV shows, DVDs though, because I don't have cable. But that's something that we all do on the river, because nobody has cable out here. So we all have DVDs we pass around, or TV shows that we like. And so, yeah, I catch up on my shows. I knit and crochet. Something I've been really getting into recently is tanning hides. So people send me, their hides from the fall, and I tan them kind of all winter and work them over a chair while watching a show in the wintertime.
Man, I should have dropped my bear hide off at the bottom of Indian Creek, so you could have fleshed that greasy thing instead of me.
I love fleshing out a bear hide, but I'm not really that great at bears yet. I don't know what the trick is. They're just very greasy. I don't know if I need to put more degreaser on it, but
I don't think there's a trick, especially fall bears. They have so much fat on them. It's oh my gosh, it just drips off of them.
Well, I've actually never worked a spring bear hide, but I know the fall bear hides I've tanned 3, and their fur slips through the back side of the hide. So it's just a furry mess, because you're working over a chair and you're just shedding hair, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I just think the hide's not in prime shape. And I've heard the spring bear hide doesn't do that. So I'm eager to get my hands on a spring bear to see if it fleshes out and tans better.
Well, do you have any plans to go out and try and find one?
No, because I've got meat in my freezer, and I don't hunt anything I'm not going to eat. So, yeah. And even trapping, I eat my bobcats, I trap. I'm not motivated to eat a coyote or wolf at all, but I like to eat what I kill.
How's bobcat?
It tastes like bobcat. I don't know. It kind of like it's a light meat like a pork, and it's kind of tastes like pork, but there's kind of like a barn cat aftertaste. It's not the best. So you don't want bobcat steaks. You're like making Italian sausage out of it and just seasoning the crap out of it so you can't even tell. But if you just have like a backstrap steak, you kind of chew on it and you're like, this is good. And then you're like, no, this kind of tastes like a barn cat.
Oh, well, good on you for eating them, I guess. I've never been motivated, as you say, to eat a bobcat, but mountain lion I like. I think mountain lion's good.
It tastes just like mountain lion. I feel like mountain lion kind of has that barn cat aftertaste too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm kind of talking about? Like,
yeah, I guess I do. It's not pork. People always want to compare mountain lion to pork, but it's certainly not. You're not eating pig.
No, it's not at all. It's just like the taste you get in your mouth is like the smell you have when you're petting a barn cat. I don't know. That's all I can describe it.
So how long do you see yourself living out there?
I'm going to live out here as long as I can. This is something talking to the old timers here on the river, they say that 95% of people that want to live out here, like really, really want to live out here, that actually make the effort to come out here, 95% of them don't even last 3 weeks. They're in and they're out. They realize that how much work it's going to be. And how, when you're done with your day, you can't go see your friends, you're completely isolated. Or if you're working for an outfitter, you're working from sunup to sundown, catering to guests. And, most people leave at that point. And then there's about 4% of people that come out here and realize it's not their thing, but they have enough integrity to stick it out through the season, to not put the outfitter, in a bad position. And then they say that about 1% of people, it's a good fit and they stay out here for a really long time. And I mean, I've been out here since 2014, so I think it's a good fit. And, they're always looking for work somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, it's impressive to me what you're doing and the scope of things that you're doing. I mean, you're haying. I see you winching logs out and using basically a windlass and block and tackle to winch these logs up and making your own lumber and fixing everything. And like you're an incredibly capable person, and that capability has got to feel good every time you accomplish something that maybe you didn't know how to do before you started it.
Yeah, this job has been the most empowering thing I could have ever done. I wish everyone in the world could spend 1 year alone at a place like Indian Creek, completely alone and isolated. And when shit hits the fan, instead of panicking and wondering who's going to come save you, you realize that, nope, you're the person that has to solve this problem.
That's awesome. Gosh. Well, what kinds of things do you miss, if any, from civilization? Pizza.
Yeah, pizza. Yeah, pizza. I miss being able to hang out with friends. When I go to town, I try and go have a drink with some friends at the bar real quick. That's something that I miss. I miss concerts. But no, that's about it.
Well, that's a doable thing, right? You've got tomatoes, you've got some seasonings, you got flour.
Yeah, but it's not, it is. I make pizza all the time here. It's not the same. I'm talking about like really shitty, like Domino's pizza that like is just cardboard. And I could never actually make it because I don't have, a lab here to create all the ingredients that they create in the lab to do that. So yeah, I miss that kind of pizza.
Gotcha. There is a special place for junk food.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't get to scratch that itch very often here, and I miss it.
Well, is there anything else that you want to tell people about your life? Anything that you feel like people would like they don't understand and you wish they did?
It's a pretty incredible way of life. It's very romantic on paper. But I think it's the perfect mix of heaven and hell up here, because it is, pretty whimsical, and on paper it looks incredible, but it's very remote. It's very isolated. And it's just me solving problems, and that can be terribly lonely at times. So it's not as romantic as it looks.
So does your dog and horses help you out with that loneliness?
Absolutely. Hams solves all my problems for me. And I think it's just because when I'm problem solving something, I'm talking out loud, and then I'm talking to him and I answer for him. So I say Hams gives me all the answers to my problems, but it's just, I guess, me.
There's nothing like a good dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like in the wintertime when, I haven't seen somebody in months, just having my dog sleep under the bed and hearing like another thing breathing, that's what I need, in the middle of January.
Yeah. Well, Aubrey, I'm really grateful for your time and kind of explaining to people this wildlife that you're living. And the next time I head up that piece of river, I'll be sure to reach out beforehand and see what you need and see what kind of pizza you want to order.
Yeah, pizza or beer. I'll never reject beer. I'll trade you. I'll send you down some homebrew in exchange for a really tasty beer from town.
Sounds like a good trade. Well, thank you very much. And I'm serious. If you ever do get in a jam, please reach out and I'll do everything I can to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. When do you think the next time you'll be out here?
Maybe this fall. I had such a good time this spring. I didn't get in time to get a tag for this fall, but I think I'll still come up anyways, just because I loved it so much.
Absolutely. So I hope to see you and actually meet you face to face.
Yep. Look forward to it. And take care of yourself and good luck making your way through all the seasons.
Yeah, you too. You have a good night.
I live in an old cabin with bad to non-existent insulation and wood heat. That cabin can see snow every month of the year and needs a good amount of firewood stacked in the woodshed to carry through the colder months. This spring, as my woodpile turned to smoke and ash, I noticed something metal pushing out of the decades of sawdust and bark. I kicked at it and unearthed a Stanley thermos. The cup was missing, and it showed more worn stainless steel than green. There were dents in the metal, and the handle looked like a puppy had chewed on it, but it still hadn't leaked the old coffee I could feel slosh inside. It took me back to memories of cutting firewood with my dad, waking up early for an elk hunt, or going out to the canyons to gather cattle. A Stanley thermos has the durability to survive whatever hard work you throw at it. You may find it carries memories as well as coffee. Learn more about their new and classic line of products at stanley1913.com or at your local sporting goods store. And catch you next week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.